It's the end of the day with Ray. Hello, my friends. Well, ladies and gentlemen, if you look at that gigantic, sharp, interactive board, you'll know it's time for me to go through Konica Minolta's FY23. Folks, they're still struggling. They did come above the line with operating profit, but it wasn't enough for me to put down the pen and give them a clap. I mean, they barely got over. They're at 2% operating profit as the whole conglomerate. And quite honestly, they clawed back an impairment charge to get most of the operating profit. So at the end of the day, it's not a real big home run by any stretch of the imagination. So they're still struggling. And today I want to share some thoughts around Konica Minolta and why I believe they're struggling and why I really do believe, more than ever, that Fujifilm will eventually take out all of Konica Minolta. We've seen the press release where Fujifilm announced that they were going to do a joint venture with Konica Minolta around manufacturing. They're exploring that possibility, let's put it that way. I believe what Fujifilm is doing is they're doing due diligence on all of Konica Minolta, and they'll probably just make an announcement that they bought the whole company. But let's just say that they form a joint venture just around manufacturing. That's a scary thing for Konica Minolta. I'm going to ask a question based on that. So let me repeat myself. Let's just say that Fujifilm and Konica Minolta join together, become a joint venture just around manufacturing of equipment. So think about that, and now I'm going to ask you all a question as I start today's episode. Why not just call Fuji? Why do the dealers need Konica? When that press release came out, that's the first thing I thought of. Why the hell does a dealer need to deal with Konica Minolta? Just call up Fuji. I mean, if Fujifilm and Konica Minolta are going to come together in a joint venture to make equipment, well, just become a Fujifilm dealer. Because Fujifilm, at the end of the day, they're a hell of a lot more disciplined company. I think they're hungry. I mean, we see them really expanding distribution in Europe. They've rekindled the relationship with Xerox, the largest dealer here in the U.S. In the ANZ, they represent about 25% market share. So they would love for some of these big mega dealers to call them up and say, hey, we were a Konica dealer, but we're thinking we'd rather be a Fuji dealer. And if you guys are going to come together with the manufacturer of equipment, it's the same machines anyway, we just assume be a Fuji dealer. Konica Minolta, I know that's a tough question for you to hear, but I'm pretty sure you're asking it yourself. I hope you are. And I hope you're coming up with an answer that would make a dealer want to stay with you. Because quite honestly, I don't see any benefit of it. What are you going to offer that dealer? They're going to be able to sell all covered? Well, I don't think so, because I don't think you'll be selling all covered that much longer. And all covered, really? What was the success on that over the last 14 years? Ladies and gentlemen, I know this is a tough question, but I'm telling you right now, there's not a dealer in the land that's a Konica Minolta dealer that hasn't thought of this question. I might just be the first one to say it out loud. Now, let's look at some numbers. Konica Minolta's top line revenue for FY 2023 was $7.4 billion. If you look at the digital workplace and the professional print, that's where all of us live, those friends of mine that sell supply and service print equipment, put them both together is $5.6 billion. Separate them out. Digital workplace, $3.9 billion. Professional print, $1.7 billion. Healthcare business, $888.4 million. The industry business, $892.1 million. Corporate, etc., did $19.8 million. Total revenue, $7.4 billion. Let's look at some operating profit. If you lump together the digital workplace and the professional print, they had $285 million in operating profit, which represents 5% of the $5.6 billion combined number. If you separate it out, digital workplace, $210.9 million in operating profit. Professional print, $74.1 million in operating profit. Healthcare lost $8.3 million. Industry, $60.1 million operating profit. That corporate, etc., that category I love so much that Konica has, lost $170 million in operating profit. Company overall, $167 million. Konica Minolta, I really wish you would tell the whole entire world exactly what costs are in this corporate, etc., especially if there's any cost associated with digital workplace and professional print. Because if there is, that means that 5% operating profit, $285 million on the $5.6 billion, could be lower. I mean, is there $50 million in costs buried in that number that belongs in the digital workplace and professional print? I think Konica Minolta really needs to define that with some more details. But at the end of the day, ladies and gentlemen, these conglomerates, they all have their issues. Konica Minolta's had an issue with this healthcare division of theirs for many years. Personally, I believe they're trying to do something they should have no business doing. And it cost them dearly. I believe Konica Minolta's whole mantra was chase revenue at all costs, the hell with profitability, and you'd almost have to believe that because if you look at their numbers around profitability for the last 5 years, it's been pretty much non-existent. The 1 year they actually have it, it's at 2%, and that's only because they clawed back some impairment charges. There's still a lot of work to be done at Konica Minolta. Let's look at some other numbers. I wanted to bring this back up, and this was that press release that they put out, a snippet of that press release, and I did an episode on this where Konica Minolta had to change its forecast. They had to tell the whole world that they were going to increase their revenue by 10 billion yen, which equates to not even 1%. I mean, it's not even a 1% increase. Why do they even have to tell you that? But they also said in this that they had robust sales in the professional print and the digital workplace business unit. Robust sales. And I'm trying to figure out what the hell numbers attached to robust sales, because like I keep telling Konica Minolta, adjectives without any math are usually proved pure bullshit. But I wanted to get to the bottom of this. And so I looked at FY 2022 and FY 2023, and I combined the revenue of digital workplace and professional print. And then I wanted to see what kind of growth they had between the 2 years. In 2022, ladies and gentlemen, the combined revenue was 852.9 billion yen, or 5.4 billion. In the year 2023, the one that we're talking about right now, 878.3 billion yen, 5.6 billion. They had a 2.8% growth in those two divisions combined. And I'm thinking to myself, is 2.8% defined as robust growth for Konica Minolta? If it is, I think you need to move it up a notch. You got to get bigger goals and have higher aspirations. I don't think anything's robust till it hits like 15%. If it was 15% growth, that'd be awesome. 2.8% growth in the times that we're in, the Forex, the weakness of the yen. Come on, Konica Minolta, you can do better. I wanted to share this slide. It's a little bit complicated, but ladies and gentlemen, what I was trying to figure out is, what's the percentage of revenue of the important business components for Konica Minolta in both the digital workplace and the professional print? Let's start in the digital workplace. The digital workplace business unit has this DWDX, that's the IT stuff, the all-covered stuff here in the U.S., all the stuff that's like the future for Konica. We're going to go out there as print declines, and we're going to be putting all this stuff out there and selling IT to all our customers, right? That's the whole mentality. That's been the mentality for like 14 years. But I wanted to go back to the year 2019, and I wanted to look at what was the revenue percentage of DWDX in the digital workplace business unit. And in 2019, it was 13.8%. 13.8% was the percentage of revenue from DWDX in the digital workplace business unit, which also includes Office. So 13% of the revenue was the futuristic stuff, if you will. And then I wanted to look, well, what's that today? What's the percentage today in the year 2023? Today is 15%. We went from 13.8 to 15%. That's not a big home run. And ladies and gentlemen, what's that's telling me is that Konica Minolta is still chasing revenue at all costs, because they're still out there schlepping them MFPs up and down the street, trying to get as much revenue as they can, But even we all know that the MFP revenue is declining. Why can't they pick up that DWDX as a bigger percentage of revenue? That's just a question. We're going from 2019 to 2023. I looked at the same thing regarding industrial print. Industrial print, it represented 11%. 11% of the revenue was industrial print in 2019. Industrial print in 2023 represented 14% of the revenue in the professional print business unit. The industrial piece component was 14%. Not a big climb, 3%. Why is that? I believe it's because Konica Minolta is running around with production print. And they're schlepping it up and down the street as cheap as they can. They're pushing it out of the marketplace. You've all heard the complaints from dealers. I can't believe they're selling that stuff so cheap. What about the service? They're giving that away too. They're chasing revenue at all costs. And when they're chasing revenue at all costs, in my opinion, that's why they really don't perform very well with operating profit. But that was just a neat exercise to think about. Konica Minolta's industrial print business for FY 2023, by the way, came in at $240.4 million. Remember the Domino Business Group? I brought them up before. That's Brothers Industrial Print Business. I just looked at their numbers. So their industrial print business, the Domino Business Group, came in at $650.2 million. Quite a whole lot larger than Konica Minolta's industrial print business. I'll share some thoughts around Brothers financials probably in a few days. Because there was an impairment charge in that Domino Business Group. We all have these impairment charges, right? But at the end of the day, who's more disciplined to deal with impairment charges? When I think about Konica Minolta and I think about their revenue and the revenue chasing, when I think about their industrial print business, I think about MGI Digital. I mean, how much MGI Digital, how much of that revenue, that $240.4 million revenue is coming from them? Was that the entire increase from 2019 to 2023? Was the revenue from MGI Digital? By the way, MGI Digital, the company they just took a big impairment charge against? Holy smokes, ladies and gentlemen. Let's look at this a little bit broken out. Because now what I wanted to do is I wanted to take the total of the two units together, that $5.6 billion, and I wanted to figure out what percentage of revenue each one of these buckets contributes against that $5.6 billion. Marketing services. What the hell is this marketing services? I keep asking you all that. What the hell is this marketing services? Good news is I believe that they're getting out of the marketing services. I'll share that in a second. But marketing services represents 6% of the $5.6 billion. Industrial print represents only 4% of the $5.6 billion. Production print represents 20% of the $5.6 billion. DWDX only represents 10% of the $5.6 billion. And office, all the MFPs and the printers, represent 60% of the $5.6 billion combined revenue. Why is that important? I'm going to get this magic pen in my hand and I'm going to tell you why it's important. Let me make sure that the pen is on. Turn on the pen. Ladies and gentlemen, Konica Minolta, 80% of their business is coming from MFPs and printers and offices and production print equipment. That's been the core business for Konica Minolta since day one, right, in our space. The DWDX, that was going to be the future. It's going to change the game for them. It's only representing 10% of their total revenue. Industrial print, 4%. I said it before, I'll say it again. Konica Minolta shouldn't even be in industrial print. They should just not even be in it. Wipe out all those costs associated with it and just focus more on the production print space. I mean, I don't understand what they're doing. Because they're telling the whole world they do all these great things around industrial print. They're going to Drupa. Hope they got a big booth. It's 4% of our revenue. We want it to get to 6 by 2 years. Ladies and gentlemen, DWDX, all covered. All this IT, all those acquisitions they made is 10% of their total revenue between the two groups combined. They're still a copier company that dabbles in DWDX, that dabbles in industrial print. I don't even know what the hell the marketing services is, but the good news is I believe they're getting out of that. I wanted to share this. I just want to read something to you because it's important in my next slide. This is where they were talking about professional print. We did this and this happened. This is why this happened, blah, blah, blah. Let me just read this. Based on the above, the professional print business recorded a revenue of 263.3 billion yen, an increase of 4.3% year on year, and a business contribution profit of 13.8 billion yen, a decrease of 8.3 year on year, due to an increase in selling and general and administrative expenses. I got to circle, underline that. Due to an increase in selling and general administrative expenses. I've been beating on Konica Minolta about their general and selling and administrative expenses. They're way too damn high. They're super high compared to their peers. And at the end of the day, you know why? Because they have complicated things they're trying to take into the marketplace that they shouldn't be doing. They got the DWDX, represents 10% of their total revenue, and they're out there with really high costs to run IT services, right? And it's only 10% of their revenue. How much of that is their cost? Ladies and gentlemen, this is a problem. And I'm going to get into that a little bit deeper. But before I do that, I wanted to compare the operating profit for the print business at Kyocera to that of Konica Minolta. Kyocera came in at 9.7% operating profit for their printing business, $281.2 million. Actually, it was 47% of Kyocera's total company's operating profit. Okay? But it was 9.7%. They had sales of $2.9 billion. Konica Minolta, they had sales of $5.6 billion in their print space, so basically double that of our friends over there at Kyocera. Their operating profit is $285 million, or 5%. So it's basically half the percentage of operating profit. I mean, at the end of the day, they only made $4 million more in operating profit on double the revenue in the print business. Don't you all think there's a problem with that? I do. That's why when you compare Konica Minolta to some of these other OEMs, and you're like, what the hell is going on at Konica Minolta? I want to talk about these selling and general administrative expenses. Ladies and gentlemen, 42% of the revenue, the $7.4 billion at Konica Minolta, 42% of their total revenue is in this selling and general administrative expenses. That's a huge number. That's a huge number. The gross profit's only at 44%, hence the 2% operating profit. When you look at our friends over here at Kyocera, $12.9 billion in top-line revenue. Their selling and general administrative expenses are only $2.9 billion, and folks, it's 23%. Why is that? Well, because Kyocera is not out there trying to do things they shouldn't be doing. Okay? They don't have high cost to chase a little bit of revenue. This is eye-opening, isn't it? Konica Minolta has got to figure out how to lower those selling and general administrative expenses. Doing a joint venture around manufacturers is one way to do it, get rid of some of that cost. But then again, if that happens, why the hell would a dealer want to represent Konica Minolta? Why wouldn't they just want to represent Fujifilm? As a matter of fact, I'm thinking to myself, why don't they want to call Kyocera? Ladies and gentlemen, they are going to make some changes. They talk about the direction change in business, narrow down regions, countries, and business areas under preparation for implementation from FY23 second quarter. The DWDX are going to make some changes to the DWDX, and I believe those changes are going to be a lot around all covered. And we're going to see what they do with that, but I wouldn't be surprised if you saw that whole thing get divested, gone away. If you look at the marketing, the optical components, and the precision medicine, they're talking about a deconsolidation of Konica Minolta marketing services. A deconsolidation means to me they're going to get rid of it, and that's $367.5 million of their revenue in the professional print business group. Probably doesn't make any money. That's probably why their selling and general administrative expenses are so high, because people in marketing make a lot of money. Who knows? They don't really clarify what the hell that even is. But there are changes coming. I wanted to share this chart because I think it's so ridiculous. And Konica Minolta, you're not the only OEM that puts this stuff out there, but I got to tell you something. Nobody gives a flying crap what happened in 2019. But Konica Minolta, they got to compare themselves. Where are we at in volume, in hardware and supplies from 2019? Who gives a crap? I think what you need to focus on is go back to 2019 and think about all the things that you should have done to prepare yourself for 2023. And then quickly do those, and then start thinking about what you need to prepare yourself for 2030. OEMs trying to figure out when the hell print's going to come back to 2019 levels is just a big old waste of time. It's ridiculous. Nobody gives a crap. And this chart, by the way, looks pretty damn complicated for y'all to put together. I mean, you got some high selling and administrative cost. Well, you could save some money just not having to do this chart. It probably took someone 30 hours to put it together. Don't do this shit anymore. I want to end the episode the way I started it. Why not just call Fuji? Why do dealers need Konica? Konica Minolta, you have got to be prepared to answer that question. I'm giving you some heads up. You better be able to figure out how to answer the question, especially those big mega dealers. I'm thinking if I'm a mega dealer selling Konica Minolta equipment, I've already called Fuji the day that press release came out. And Konica Minolta, I don't know how you're going to answer that question. Quite honestly, if my prediction comes true, it'll be irrelevant, because I really believe that Fujifilm will gobble up all of Konica Minolta. And everybody watching me knows this. Status quo is the killer of all that'll be invented. Don't get stuck in status quo, and I'll see y'all tomorrow.